You ever caught yourself reacting to something in a way that just doesn't feel right? Maybe you snapped at someone over something small, or let your frustrations get the best of you. We all do it. The truth is, we often overlook red flags in our own behavior, the signs that point to deeper issues we're ignoring. But here's the thing, if we want to grow, if we want to be better versions of ourselves, we need to start paying attention to these signals. Self-awareness is key. It's the foundation of Stoicism. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." But what happens when our thoughts aren't clear, when we let bad habits or unchecked emotions run the show? That's when we start making the same mistakes over and over again, and before we know it, we're stuck in a cycle that doesn't serve us. What if you could spot the little ways your behavior is holding you back, and make simple changes that lead to real improvement? Today, we're going to talk about 10 red flags in your own behavior that you should never ignore. These aren't just habits or patterns that cause temporary frustration. They're deeper issues that need your attention. But here's the good news. Recognizing these red flags is the first step toward taking control and breaking free from unhealthy patterns. When we begin to pay attention, we realize how much power we have over our actions and mindset. Epictetus, one of the greatest Stoics, said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." That's what we're talking about today, how your reactions, your thoughts, and your behaviors shape your life. And the Stoics have so much wisdom to offer us in these areas. They show us that by changing how we respond to things, we can change everything about how we experience life. So, let's take a moment to think about those red flags. The little things you might be overlooking that may seem harmless at first, but actually hold you back from becoming your best self. The Stoics teach us that self-awareness is a powerful tool, and the more we use it, the more control we have over our lives. Before we jump into the details, I'd love to hear from you. What's one red flag you might be ignoring in your own life? Drop a comment below and let's start the conversation. And, if you haven't yet, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. This way, you won't miss any more insights on how Stoicism can improve your life. Let's get started. The first red flag in your behavior that you shouldn't ignore is the overwhelming desire to control everything in your life. If you're someone who finds it hard to relax unless everything is exactly as planned, whether it's a meeting, a family event, or even how your day goes, then this might be something you need to reflect on. It's natural to want control. In fact, the world often feels chaotic, unpredictable, and out of our hands. It's comforting to think that if we just manage every little detail, we can prevent things from going wrong. But here's the problem. When we try to control things that are beyond our reach, we end up frustrated and stressed. We start feeling like we're constantly swimming against the current, exhausted by our own expectations. Take Sarah, for example. Sarah was a perfectionist. She tried to control every part of her life. From her career to her relationships, she needed everything to go according to plan. If her partner forgot an anniversary or a meeting at work ran late, it felt like her world was falling apart. She spent hours stressing over things that weren't in her hands, what others thought of her, how situations played out, or how people reacted to her plans. It took a toll on her mental health and her relationships. Sarah wasn't allowing herself peace because she was trying to manage things that weren't her responsibility. This is where Stoic principles come in. The Stoics, like Epictetus, remind us that we only have control over our thoughts and actions, and trying to control anything beyond that is a recipe for frustration. Epictetus famously said, "We cannot choose our external circumstances, but we can always choose how we respond to them." What he's teaching us here is that external events, other people's actions, the weather, even global events, are all out of our control. The only thing we can control is how we react. When Sarah started applying this idea, it wasn't easy. She had to take a step back and evaluate her behavior. Slowly, she began focusing less on controlling how others behaved or how her day turned out. Instead, she started focusing on her reactions. If a meeting didn't go well, she reminded herself that she could control how she responded to it, whether she let it ruin her mood or took it as an opportunity to learn and improve. If things went wrong at home, she learned to communicate calmly and kindly rather than getting frustrated. This shift wasn't immediate, but it made a huge difference in her stress levels and her relationships. You might be wondering, how does this relate to your life? Are there moments when you feel stressed because you're trying to control things that you just can't? Maybe it's about how others perceive you, how your career progresses, or how your family reacts. These things are beyond your control, but how you choose to react is completely in your hands. The Stoics teach us that peace of mind comes when we accept this fact. Here's an actionable tip for letting go of the need to control everything. Start by identifying one thing today that you can't control, whether it's how someone responds to you or how your day unfolds, and remind yourself that you don't have to manage it. Instead, focus on what you can control, your response to it. If something doesn't go your way, take a deep breath, pause, and think about how you can handle it with a calm and clear mind. Over time, this practice will help you release the need for control and bring you more peace. It's not about giving up or being passive. It's about using your energy wisely, focusing on what truly matters, and freeing yourself from the unnecessary stress of trying to control the uncontrollable. One of the biggest red flags in our behavior is the constant desire to control everything around us. Many of us think that by having control, we can avoid pain, disappointment, or failure. We believe that if we manage every detail, we'll prevent things from going wrong. But in reality, this desire for control often causes more stress, frustration, and anxiety. Think about it. How many times have you found yourself getting upset over something you couldn't control? Maybe it's traffic when you're already running late, or how someone else behaves in a situation where you have no say. When we try to control these things, we're setting ourselves up for frustration. We focus on things that are out of our hands and waste our energy on them. For example, imagine Ben, a young professional. Ben always tried to control everything in his life, his job, his relationships, even how his friends reacted to his plans. If something didn't go the way he thought it should, he'd get angry or anxious. His whole day could be ruined by one small thing that was out of his control. Whether it was a meeting running late, a friend not responding to a text, or an unexpected problem at work, Ben would stress out, trying to fix things that he couldn't possibly control. This is where Stoic philosophy really helps. The Stoics, like Marcus Aurelius and Epictetus, taught us that we can't control everything, only our thoughts, actions, and responses. Epictetus put it simply, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. In other words, the Stoics believed that our peace of mind comes not from trying to control everything, but from accepting that there will always be things beyond our influence. What we can control is how we respond to these things. Ben, after struggling with this for a while, realized he needed to let go of his need to control every detail. He couldn't control his boss's decisions or how people responded to him, but he could control how he reacted. So, he started small. Instead of getting upset over a late response from a friend, he took a deep breath and reminded himself that the person might be busy. His peace of mind didn't need to be tied to someone else's actions. At work, instead of stressing about things out of his control, he focused on doing his best in the areas where he could have an impact. This shift helped him reduce his stress and feel more at peace with life. The Stoics didn't tell us to be passive or give up on everything. They simply encouraged us to focus on what we can change: our actions, our attitudes, our mindset. Everything else, it's out of our hands. And when we start focusing on what we can control, we free ourselves from unnecessary stress and find more peace in everyday life. So how can you start letting go of the need to control everything? First, identify one thing today that's stressing you out that you can't control. It could be a conversation you're worried about, someone else's behavior, or a situation at work. Remind yourself that it's not your responsibility to control these things. Instead, focus on how you can react. Can you respond calmly? Can you learn from the situation? Can you simply accept that you can't change it and move on? By practicing this, you'll find that a lot of the stress you feel is really just tied to your need for control. Letting go of that control doesn't mean you're giving up. It means you're choosing peace over anxiety. The second red flag is something many of us struggle with, constantly comparing ourselves to others. It's natural to look around and see what others are doing, but when we base our sense of self-worth on comparisons, we open the door to dissatisfaction and frustration. The more we compare, the more we feel inadequate, like we're not measuring up. Think about it. How often do you scroll through social media and find yourself feeling like others have it all figured out while you're stuck? Maybe your friends seem to be advancing in their careers, traveling the world, or living the life you dream of, and it feels like you're falling behind. We often forget that we're only seeing one small piece of their story. Yet this constant comparison can make us feel like we're missing something, leading to self-doubt and unhappiness. Take Sarah, for example. Sarah was always comparing herself to her peers. Her friends seemed to be more successful, had better relationships, and were constantly posting about their exciting lives. Every time Sarah compared herself to them, she felt less accomplished. It wasn't just about achievements, it was about lifestyle, appearance, and success. She felt like she was always chasing someone else's idea of what she should be. The more she compared, the more she got distracted from her own goals and growth. She found herself feeling stuck in a cycle of negativity, wondering why she couldn't be like everyone else. The problem with comparison is that it distracts us from our personal journey. We end up focusing on others' progress rather than our own. This is where Stoicism offers valuable insight. The Stoics believed in self-sufficiency and focusing on one's own growth. Epictetus said, "Don't explain your philosophy, embody it." Instead of looking at others and measuring ourselves by their standards, Stoicism teaches us to look inward and ask, "Am I growing? Am I doing my best?" The Stoics were less concerned with external validation and more focused on internal progress. Sarah, once she began practicing Stoic principles, started shifting her focus. She realized that her journey was unique, and comparing it to someone else's didn't serve her growth. She decided to let go of measuring her success against others, and instead focused on her own development, whether that was improving her skills, setting personal goals, or simply being content with where she was. She started using small wins to build confidence, and over time, her sense of self-worth grew stronger. She stopped being distracted by what others were doing and became more focused on what she could control, her actions and attitude. This shift in mindset allowed Sarah to stop wasting energy on comparison. She stopped judging her worth by how she stacked up against others and started embracing her own journey. She discovered that her life didn't have to look like anyone else's to be meaningful. The Stoics believed that true contentment comes from knowing that you're doing your best, not from living up to someone else's expectations. So, what can you do to stop comparing yourself to others and focus on your own growth? One simple tip is to start tracking your own progress. Instead of comparing your achievements to others, measure how much you've grown personally. Take time to reflect on your own development, whether it's in your career, your relationships, or your personal well-being. Keep a journal where you note down small victories and areas you want to improve. Over time, you'll see how much you've accomplished, and it will remind you that your growth isn't about anyone else. It's about you. It's not about being better than others. It's about being better than you were yesterday. The third red flag is something many of us do instinctively, avoiding discomfort or hardship. It's natural, right? Who wants to face challenges, stress, or pain? We often go out of our way to avoid difficult situations, whether it's a tough conversation, a challenging project at work, or something more personal. Our instinct is to avoid what makes us uncomfortable. But here's the thing, avoiding hardship can actually stunt our growth. Think about it. When was the last time you grew as a person by staying in your comfort zone? Likely never. Growth happens when we push ourselves, when we face challenges head-on and learn from them. But that's easier said than done. We tend to run away from what feels hard or uncomfortable, believing it will only bring us stress or failure. But in truth, it's through discomfort that we build strength, resilience, and wisdom. Take the story of John, for example. John had a successful job, but he was too scared to make the leap into something new. He was comfortable, but his passion was slowly dying. He wanted to start his own business, but the fear of failure kept him from taking the first step. He avoided the discomfort of stepping into the unknown. The longer he waited, the more stuck he felt. He didn't realize that the discomfort he was avoiding was the very thing that would allow him to grow and achieve something greater. One day, John had a moment of clarity. He remembered a quote from the Stoic philosopher Epictetus. "Difficulties are things that show what men are." John realized that he had been avoiding discomfort for too long. The very fear he had was the key to his growth. Instead of continuing to avoid it, he decided to take action. He started small, researching the market, talking to people who had already made the leap. Slowly, he began to embrace the discomfort of the unknown. It wasn't easy. There were setbacks, moments of doubt, and times when he wanted to quit. But by embracing the challenge, John grew stronger and more confident. Eventually, John launched his business and found a new sense of fulfillment. He realized that it wasn't the success of the business that had changed him. It was the process of overcoming the discomfort and facing his fears. The Stoic principle here is clear. Hardship is not something to avoid, but something to embrace. It is through hardship that we grow. As Marcus Aurelius, another Stoic philosopher, said, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." The things that seem to block our path are often the very things that propel us forward. Now, I know it's not easy to reframe discomfort as an opportunity for growth. It's tough. But here's a simple tip to help you start. The next time you face something difficult, whether it's a tough conversation, a challenging task, or stepping out of your comfort zone, pause and remind yourself that this discomfort is an opportunity. Instead of saying, "This is too hard, I can't do it," try thinking, "This is difficult, but it's going to teach me something valuable." Change your perspective. Ask yourself, what can I learn from this? This small shift can make a world of difference in how you approach challenges. It's important to remember that discomfort is not a sign of failure, it's a sign of growth. So the next time you feel that resistance, lean into it. Embrace the challenge. This is where real change happens. The fourth red flag is neglecting self-reflection. How often do we go through our days without taking a moment to reflect on our actions, our choices, or the way we react to things? It's easy to get caught up in the hustle, but failing to pause and think about our behavior can lead us to repeat the same mistakes over and over. And that's not just frustrating, it's also limiting our potential for growth. Self-reflection is a key part of Stoic practice. The Stoics knew that in order to improve and grow, we must regularly examine our thoughts and actions. Marcus Aurelius, one of the most well-known Stoic philosophers, wrote in his journal every day, reflecting on his actions and how he could improve. He believed that self-reflection helped him stay grounded and focused on what truly mattered. The Stoic philosopher Seneca also emphasized this practice, saying, "The greatest remedy for anger is delay, for to be able to reflect is to be able to reason." When we take the time to reflect, we can pause before reacting, see our mistakes, and make better choices next time. But why is reflection so important? Without it, we're like a car that's running full speed with no direction. We may feel like we're getting somewhere, but we're probably just going in circles. Without self-reflection, we can't learn from our past experiences, and we can't grow. We end up repeating the same mistakes, responding to challenges in the same way, and not evolving. Take the example of Sarah, a young woman who had a difficult time in her relationships. She would often find herself reacting emotionally, yelling, withdrawing, or even ending things prematurely. For a long time, she didn't understand why things kept falling apart. It wasn't until a close friend suggested she take time to reflect on her actions that Sarah started to notice a pattern. She realized that her reactions were often rooted in fear, insecurity, and past experiences, rather than what was actually happening in the present moment. Once Sarah began to reflect on her behavior, journaling, taking a step back before reacting, she started to make more mindful decisions, and her relationships began to improve. Reflection didn't change her overnight, but it helped her identify the underlying issues that were holding her back. She was able to learn from her mistakes and grow from them. This is exactly why Stoic philosophers like Marcus Aurelius stressed the importance of daily reflection. They understood that by regularly examining our behavior and thoughts, we can make better choices and improve every day. It's a process of continuous growth rather than a one-time fix. Marcus Aurelius famously said, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." Self-reflection allows us to identify what stands in our way, and in doing so, enables us to turn obstacles into opportunities for growth. Now, you might be thinking, "I don't have time for reflection. I've got too much going on." But here's the thing. It doesn't have to take hours. It can be as simple as taking 5 minutes at the end of each day to check in with yourself. Ask yourself questions like, how did I handle that situation today? What went well? What could I have done differently? It doesn't have to be a deep, philosophical analysis. It's about being aware and intentional. Just a moment of quiet reflection can make all the difference in the world. Here's a simple exercise you can start today to build self-reflection into your routine. At the end of your day, set aside 5 minutes to sit quietly. Think back to a moment during your day where you made a decision, reacted to something, or interacted with someone. Ask yourself these 3 questions. Number 1, what did I do well in that situation? Number 2, what could I have done better? Number 3, what can I learn from this to improve tomorrow? It's a short exercise, but it's incredibly powerful. It allows you to identify areas for growth and focus on what you can improve. You don't need to be perfect. The goal is progress, not perfection. Self-reflection is a Stoic practice that, when embraced, leads to greater self-awareness, better decision-making, and more mindful living. It's a tool for transformation, helping us learn from our experiences and become the best version of ourselves. The 5th red flag is letting emotions drive your decisions instead of reason. It's easy to get caught up in the heat of the moment, whether it's anger, fear, or frustration. Emotions can cloud our judgment and push us to act impulsively, often leading to regret. But as the Stoics taught us, letting emotions control us is a dangerous path. Instead, we should pause, reflect, and act based on reason, not on how we feel in the moment. You've probably experienced it. Your heart races, your thoughts become clouded, and before you know it, you've said something you regret, made a decision you didn't really want to make, or acted in a way that isn't in line with your values. Anger, fear, and other strong emotions often lead to reactions we wish we could take back. It's like when a situation escalates and you react without thinking, only to realize later that it wasn't the best choice. This is where Stoicism offers a powerful perspective. The Stoics believed in acting with reason, regardless of how intense emotions might feel. They didn't deny emotions, they simply didn't let them dictate their actions. In fact, Marcus Aurelius, one of the most famous Stoic philosophers, said, The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. This is a reminder that how we choose to respond to our emotions plays a big part in determining our happiness and our peace of mind. Let's consider the story of Alex, a business owner who let his fear control him. Alex was facing a financial crisis in his company. The pressure was immense, and one day he received an email from a partner that he misinterpreted as a threat. His heart raced, his mind was consumed with fear, and without thinking, he immediately fired back a harsh response. In that moment, his fear dictated his actions. But when the dust settled, Alex realized his impulsive decision was based on his emotions, not his reason. The relationship with his partner was strained, and it took months to repair the damage. It was only after that incident that Alex began to understand the value of pausing and using reason. He learned to recognize when his emotions were getting the better of him. Instead of reacting impulsively, Alex now takes a moment to breathe, to assess the situation, and to consider the most rational course of action. He doesn't suppress his emotions. He simply chooses not to act on them immediately. The Stoic principle of virtue as the highest good teaches us that our ability to reason, to make thoughtful decisions, is one of the greatest strengths we can cultivate. So, how can we apply this to our own lives? The next time you feel a strong emotion building up, whether it's anger, fear, or frustration, take a moment to pause. Ask yourself, is this decision driven by emotion or by reason? What would my rational mind advise in this moment? Here's a simple but powerful exercise to help you build this pause into your daily life. Number 1, when you feel a strong emotion coming on, take a deep breath. Give yourself a few seconds of silence. Number 2, ask yourself, what is the reasoning behind my emotional response? Is it truly based on facts or assumptions? Is there another way to view the situation? Number 3, pause before reacting. Instead of immediately responding, take a moment to reflect on the bigger picture. Is this reaction serving me in the long term, or will I regret it later? This exercise helps you distance yourself from the intensity of your emotions and gives you the space to choose a response that aligns with your values and goals. Remember, emotions are natural, and it's okay to feel them. The goal isn't to suppress them, but to prevent them from making decisions for you. By practicing reason over impulse, you'll find that your actions become more intentional and your regrets will decrease. As the Stoics taught, wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants. This same idea applies to our emotional reactions. True strength is in the ability to be calm and reasoned, not driven by the turbulence of fleeting emotions. The 6th red flag, constantly seeking external validation. It's natural to want approval from others. We all seek reassurance from time to time, but when we rely on others' opinions to define our worth, it can erode our self-esteem and peace of mind. We end up caught in a never-ending cycle of seeking approval, and no matter how much validation we get, it never seems enough. The Stoics, however, had a different approach. One that taught self-reliance and the importance of finding validation from within. Think about it. How often do we find ourselves looking for likes on social media, waiting for compliments, or seeking acknowledgement from others before we feel good about ourselves? We may convince ourselves that external validation is just a way to affirm our actions, but the reality is that it ties our happiness to things outside of our control. When you depend on others to feel good about who you are, you give away your power. The Stoics believed that true peace comes from within. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, wrote, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." It's a reminder that we have control over how we view ourselves. Instead of looking outward for validation, we should look inward. The only approval that matters is your own. Let's talk about Mia, someone who struggled with constant validation. Mia had always relied on the opinions of others to feel confident. Whether it was in her career or personal life, she couldn't shake the need for approval. If someone didn't praise her work, she doubted herself. If a friend didn't seem enthusiastic about her ideas, she questioned their worth. Mia's self-esteem was tied directly to how others perceived her, and it left her feeling constantly anxious and insecure. It wasn't until Mia began practicing Stoic principles that things started to change. She realized that seeking external validation was like chasing a moving target. She would never feel truly satisfied because there was always someone else's opinion to worry about. She decided to focus on what she could control, her thoughts and actions. Mia began to develop a deeper sense of self-reliance. Instead of waiting for others to tell her she was doing well, she learned to assess her actions and outcomes on her own terms. Through this shift, Mia learned to validate herself, not through others' praise, but through her own sense of accomplishment. She began to ask herself, did I do my best? Was I true to my values? Over time, this practice helped her build inner confidence. She no longer sought validation from others to feel good about herself. She found peace in the knowledge that she was doing her best and living according to her values. Her self-esteem became stronger, and she stopped worrying about whether others approved of her decisions. The lesson here is clear. Seeking validation from others is a trap. It can make us feel good in the short term, but it never leads to lasting satisfaction. The key is to build your self-confidence from within. This doesn't mean ignoring others' opinions completely, but it means not letting them dictate your sense of worth. Here's how you can start building inner confidence. Number 1, assess your actions based on your values. Every day, ask yourself, did I act in line with my values today? This will help you validate your choices based on what truly matters, not what others think. Number 2, set personal goals and track your progress. Instead of waiting for external recognition, set goals that are meaningful to you and track your own progress. Celebrate your small wins along the way. Number 3, practice self-compassion. Treat yourself with kindness, especially when things don't go as planned. Instead of relying on others' approval, give yourself the grace to grow and learn from mistakes. Number 4, quiet the noise. Take time away from social media, conversations, or environments that make you feel dependent on others' opinions. Allow yourself to reconnect with your inner voice. Number 5, affirm your worth. Every day, remind yourself of your strengths, achievements, and the person you are. The Stoic principle of self-reliance teaches us that we don't need anyone else's approval to be enough. Remember, the only opinion that truly matters is your own. By practicing these steps, you'll begin to build a confidence that isn't dependent on the fleeting approval of others. In doing so, you'll find greater peace of mind and freedom. The 7th red flag, perfectionism. It's something we all struggle with at times. We want to do everything just right, make sure every detail is flawless, every outcome is perfect. But here's the thing. Perfectionism isn't just about wanting things to go well. It's about setting standards that are so high, it can feel impossible to reach them. And when we inevitably fall short, we're left with stress, frustration, and self-doubt. The pursuit of perfection, ironically, often keeps us from making progress. The Stoics had a different perspective. Instead of chasing perfection, they embraced imperfection. They focused on progress, not perfection. As Epictetus wisely said, progress is not achieved by perfection, but by learning from our mistakes. The Stoic view teaches us that growth comes from embracing the flaws, the setbacks, and the mistakes we make along the way. It's not about being perfect. It's about being better than you were yesterday. Let's take a moment to think about it. How often do we get caught in the trap of perfectionism? Maybe it's with a project at work, a personal goal, or even something as simple as a meal you're cooking. We can spend hours trying to make everything just right. But when perfection becomes the standard, we set ourselves up for disappointment. The more we strive for the unreachable, the more stress we experience. Perfectionism can paralyze us. It makes us afraid to act because we're too focused on doing things perfectly. Take the example of Alex. Alex was a young entrepreneur with big dreams. He wanted to launch a product that could change the way people thought about fitness. But every time he tried to launch, he found himself caught up in the details. The logo wasn't perfect. The website needed one more tweak. The product wasn't exactly how he imagined it. Over and over, he delayed his launch, waiting for the perfect moment. But that moment never came. Eventually, Alex realized that his pursuit of perfection was actually preventing him from moving forward. He wasn't making any progress. He was stuck in an endless loop of revisions and second-guessing. It wasn't until he embraced the idea of imperfection, until he let go of the need for things to be perfect, that he finally launched his product. It wasn't flawless, but it was good enough to make an impact. And that was the start of something bigger than he could have imagined. This story brings us to an important lesson. Perfectionism often leads to paralysis. We think we need to have everything perfect before we take action. But the reality is that progress doesn't work that way. Perfection doesn't lead to success. It leads to stagnation. By embracing imperfection and focusing on progress, we create space for growth and change. So how can we apply this Stoic principle to our lives? Here's some advice for overcoming perfectionism and embracing progress. Number 1. Set realistic standards. Instead of aiming for perfection, aim for something that is good enough to move forward. Recognize that there will always be room for improvement, but that doesn't mean you need to wait until everything is perfect. Number 2, take action, even if it's imperfect. The key is to start. Perfectionism can paralyze us into inaction, but by taking small steps, even if they're not perfect, we build momentum. The act of doing, of moving forward, leads to progress. Number 3, embrace mistakes as learning opportunities. Mistakes are part of the process. The Stoics taught that failure isn't something to fear, it's something to learn from. When we make a mistake, we learn, we adapt, and we get better. Number 4, focus on continuous improvement, not perfection. Rather than aiming for perfection, ask yourself, how can I be a little better today than I was yesterday? It's about progress, not perfection. Every day is an opportunity to improve, no matter how small the change. Number 5, let go of unrealistic expectations. Perfection is an illusion. No matter how hard we try, it's impossible to reach. So instead of beating yourself up over imperfections, shift your mindset to one of growth. Acknowledge your flaws and see them as opportunities to improve. Perfectionism is a form of self-sabotage. It's a trap that prevents us from taking the necessary steps forward. But when we accept that imperfection is part of growth, we free ourselves to move forward, make progress, and ultimately succeed. Remember, it's not about being perfect. It's about being better than you were yesterday. And with every small improvement, you're building a stronger, more resilient version of yourself. So let go of the need for perfection and start embracing progress. The 8th red flag, holding grudges and resentment. It's something we all face at some point. Someone hurts us, betrays us, or lets us down, and we hold on to that pain. We think that holding on to the anger, the bitterness, and the resentment will somehow make us feel better or protect us from further harm. But in reality, all it does is harm us, draining our peace of mind and our emotional energy. Resentment and grudges are like a weight we carry around. The longer we hold on to them, the heavier they become, and in the process, we lose something much more valuable, our personal peace. When we're constantly consumed by thoughts of the past, whether it's an old argument, a broken trust, or a betrayal, we let the past control our present. As the Stoics teach us, the only thing we truly control is our response. And holding on to anger, that's not a choice that serves us. Seneca, a Stoic philosopher, wisely said, "Anger, if not restrained, is frequently more hurtful to us than the injury that provokes it." When we allow ourselves to remain angry or resentful, we're doing more harm to ourselves than the person who wronged us. The anger stays inside us, simmering and eating away at our inner peace. And the worst part, the person who hurt us probably isn't even thinking about it anymore. But we carry that bitterness around, letting it poison our thoughts, our energy, and our well-being. Let me tell you a story about Sarah. She had a close friend, Lisa, who betrayed her trust. Lisa had shared a personal secret of Sarah's with others, and Sarah felt deeply hurt and betrayed. For months, Sarah couldn't let it go. Every time she thought about it, the anger would rise. She felt like she couldn't trust anyone anymore. She kept replaying the betrayal over and over in her mind, each time feeling the sting all over again. But one day, Sarah realized something important. She was letting that hurt and anger control her. She realized that holding on to the grudge wasn't changing anything. It was only making her miserable. Sarah decided to forgive Lisa. Not because Lisa deserved forgiveness, but because she deserved peace. And in that moment, when she let go of the resentment, she felt a weight lift off her shoulders. She was no longer held prisoner by her anger. She was free. This story shows the power of forgiveness. It's not about condoning the wrong done to us. It's about releasing ourselves from the chains of resentment. Forgiveness isn't for the person who hurt us. It's for our own peace of mind. When we forgive, we take back control. We stop letting the past dictate our present and future. But how do we let go of resentment? How do we stop holding grudges that seem to have such a tight grip on our hearts? Here's some practical advice to help you. Number 1, acknowledge the hurt. You can't move on if you don't first recognize that you've been hurt. It's okay to feel angry or upset about what happened. Don't bottle up your emotions. Accept that you're hurt, but don't let it define you. Number 2, understand that holding a grudge harms you more than anyone else. Resentment is like drinking poison and hoping the other person will die. It doesn't hurt them. It only hurts you. The person who wronged you might not even know or care about your pain, but you're carrying it with you every day. Number 3, remember, forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. Forgiveness doesn't mean you have to forget what happened or let the person off the hook. It simply means you're choosing to release the hold that the anger and bitterness have on your heart. You're choosing peace over pain. Number 4, focus on the present. The past is gone. We can't change it, but we can control how we respond to it. Instead of letting the past dictate your present emotions, choose to focus on the now. How can you live with peace today, regardless of what happened in the past? Number 5, practice compassion, even for those who hurt you. This doesn't mean excusing their behavior, but understanding that everyone is fighting their own battles. We all make mistakes, and sometimes people hurt others out of their own pain or ignorance. This perspective can make it easier to let go of the anger and forgive. Number 6, take back your power. Forgiving someone doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're strong enough to let go of the anger and take control of your own happiness. When you forgive, you are the one in charge. You're the one choosing to move forward in peace. The Stoic principle of letting go of resentment and focusing on the present can transform your life. Holding grudges doesn't serve you, it only keeps you stuck. But forgiveness sets you free. It's one of the most powerful acts of self-care you can do. When you forgive, you reclaim your peace, your energy, and your joy. The 9th red flag, fear of failure. This is a huge one. How many times have you hesitated to take action because you were afraid you might fail? Fear of failure has a sneaky way of holding us back, keeping us stuck in a cycle of inaction, second-guessing, and missed opportunities. We freeze, telling ourselves, "What if I fail?" But here's the harsh truth. Fear of failure doesn't protect us from failure. It only stops us from moving forward. One day, Michael spoke to a mentor who was a successful entrepreneur. The mentor shared a story about his own early failures, how he had launched a business that completely flopped, lost money, and faced public embarrassment. But here's the kicker. Instead of letting that failure define him, he used it to fuel his next steps. He learned from his mistakes, adapted his strategy, and eventually built a successful business. Failure isn't the opposite of success, his mentor said. It's a part of it. Inspired by this, Michael decided to stop fearing failure. He took the leap and started his business. Did he fail? Not entirely. But he faced setbacks, made mistakes, and had to adjust. And each failure led him one step closer to success. Over time, he built a thriving company. The failure he feared so much wasn't a barrier. It was the foundation for his growth. This story illustrates a powerful lesson. Failure isn't something to be feared. It's something to learn from. Every failure gives us valuable feedback about what works and what doesn't. It's only through failing and learning from those failures that we can improve and grow. So, how do we reframe failure in a way that helps us grow? Number 1, change your perspective on failure. Instead of seeing failure as a sign that you're not good enough or that you should give up, see it as a lesson. What did you learn? What could you do differently next time? Failure is feedback, not finality. Number 2, focus on action, not the outcome. The Stoics believed in doing what is right and leaving the results to fate. You can't control every outcome, but you can control your actions. Instead of worrying about failing, focus on doing your best and learning from each experience. Number 3, don't fear small failures. We often fear the big, dramatic failures, but the small ones are just as important, if not more so. Every small failure is a chance to adjust, to refine your approach, and to get better. It's a necessary step in the process of growth. Number 4, understand that failure is temporary. No failure is permanent unless you stop trying. The most successful people in the world have failed countless times before they succeeded. Failure doesn't define you, it's just a part of the journey. Number 5, use failure as a tool for personal growth. Every time you fail, you get better. You learn more about yourself, your strengths, and your weaknesses. You develop resilience and perseverance. In the Stoic mindset, each failure is an opportunity to strengthen your character and grow. Number 6, take the pressure off perfection. Fear of failure often comes from the desire to be perfect, but perfection is an illusion. Focus on progress instead. Celebrate each step forward, no matter how small. The Stoics taught that we should strive for excellence, but not obsess over perfection. Let me leave you with this. Failure is not a sign that you're incapable. It's a sign that you're human. It's a sign that you're willing to step outside your comfort zone and take risks. It's a sign that you're trying to grow. So don't let fear of failure stop you from moving forward. Embrace it, learn from it, and use it as a tool for growth. The 10th red flag, neglecting your physical and mental health. It's easy to put our health on the back burner, especially when we're caught up in the rush of daily life, work, family, responsibilities. We tell ourselves, I'll take care of it later. There's just too much going on right now. But here's the truth. Neglecting your health, both mental and physical, is a ticking time bomb. Eventually, it catches up with you. The Stoics understood that the mind and body are deeply connected. They believed in cultivating a strong, healthy body as much as a resilient mind. In fact, they saw physical well-being as an essential part of living a virtuous life. A healthy body helps you serve your mind and character. It helps you fulfill your duties and pursue your goals with energy and focus. You can't have one without the other. Seneca, one of the key Stoic philosophers, once said, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it." This is especially true when we neglect our health. We may think we're too busy or that it doesn't matter right now, but it will, eventually. The longer we neglect our health, the more time we waste. The Stoics would argue that caring for your body is an essential part of taking responsibility for your life. Take a look at Sarah. Sarah was a high achiever, always focused on her career, always meeting deadlines, always putting others first. But there was one thing she neglected: her health. She skipped workouts, ate poorly, and worked late into the night, barely getting any sleep. She told herself it was all worth it. I'll focus on my health once I've hit this next milestone. but eventually her body started to break down. She started feeling fatigued all the time, had trouble focusing, and even began experiencing anxiety. Her work suffered, her relationships strained, and she realized that by neglecting her health, she had lost the very energy she needed to succeed. It was only after hitting a breaking point that Sarah realized how important her health was. She couldn't just focus on her career or productivity anymore. Her body and mind needed attention too. Sarah started incorporating small changes into her daily routine: regular exercise, eating better, and prioritizing sleep. Over time, she noticed a shift in her energy, mood, and overall performance. When she took care of her body, her mind became clearer, her stress levels decreased, and she felt more balanced. It wasn't about perfection, it was about taking consistent action. Now let's take a moment to reflect. How often do we neglect our health? Do you feel like you're constantly running on empty? Are you prioritizing your well-being, or are you sacrificing it for other pursuits? These are important questions to ask yourself, because your health is not something that can wait until later. In Stoicism, we have a powerful practice of focusing on what is within our control. And guess what? Your physical and mental health are within your control. While you may not be able to control every aspect of your life or the world around you, you have the power to choose how you take care of yourself. By intentionally focusing on your health, you're not only taking care of your body, but also strengthening your mind. So, how can we maintain both mental and physical well-being in line with Stoic principles? Number 1, start small and be consistent. You don't need to overhaul your entire lifestyle overnight. Just take one small step each day to prioritize your health. Whether it's a 10-minute workout, eating one healthier meal, or getting to bed 30 minutes earlier. Consistency is key. Number 2, exercise regularly. The Stoics believed in the importance of physical fitness, not for vanity, but to keep the body strong and prepared to serve the mind. Whether it's a walk, yoga, or strength training, regular exercise boosts both mental and physical health. Number 3, prioritize sleep and rest. You can't function at your best without adequate sleep. Make sleep a priority, as it's essential for both mental clarity and physical recovery. Your mind needs rest just as much as your body. Number 4, practice mindfulness and stress management. Mental health is just as important as physical health. Practice mindfulness, meditation, or deep breathing exercises to manage stress and keep your mind clear. Stoicism teaches us to focus on what is within our control and to let go of things we can't change. This can be a game changer when it comes to mental well-being. Number 5, eat a balanced diet. The food you eat has a direct impact on your energy levels, mood, and overall well-being. Focus on nourishing your body with wholesome foods, fruits, vegetables, lean proteins, and whole grains, while also enjoying the occasional treat. Remember, balance is key. Number 6, take time for recovery. Just like your body needs exercise, it also needs recovery time. Don't forget to give yourself permission to rest and recharge. Your mind and body need it to perform at their best. Number 7, reflect regularly. Take time each day or week to reflect on your health habits, what's working, what needs adjustment. Use this time to check in with yourself and ensure that you're taking care of your well-being in a balanced way. Caring for both your body and mind isn't just about looking good or being productive. It's about living a fulfilling life, one where you have the energy, clarity, and resilience to tackle whatever comes your way. As we reach the end of our journey through the 10 red flags, let's take a moment to reflect on what we've discussed and how Stoicism can guide us toward a life of greater peace and resilience. We started with red flag number 1, being reactive, and how Stoicism teaches us to choose our responses thoughtfully rather than being driven by impulse. Then we looked at the second red flag, seeking external validation, and how Stoicism encourages us to cultivate inner strength and self-reliance. Next, we discussed being overly attached to outcomes, a trap that leads to frustration and disappointment. Stoicism reminds us to focus on what we can control and let go of attachment to results. Then came the fear of judgment and how the Stoic practice of indifference helps us rise above others' opinions and embrace our own truth. Perfectionism was the next red flag, showing us how striving for flawlessness can prevent growth. Stoicism teaches us to accept our imperfections and learn from our mistakes. Red flag 6, ignoring your own needs, a reminder to nurture yourself, as we can't serve others from an empty cup. Stoics believe in taking care of ourselves in order to serve the world better. Red flag 7, avoiding discomfort, and how embracing discomfort, according to Stoicism, strengthens resilience and helps us face challenges head-on. Then, we explored the danger of holding grudges and resentment, and how forgiveness brings peace, freeing us from the weight of anger. Fear of failure was another red flag, which stops us from taking risks and learning from mistakes, while Stoicism encourages us to see failure as a necessary stepping stone to success. Finally, we addressed neglecting your health and how balancing both physical and mental well-being is essential for a Stoic life. Strong body, strong mind. Now I want you to pause for a moment, reflect on these red flags. Which one resonates with you the most? Which of these behaviors might you be guilty of ignoring in your own life? Be honest with yourself. Self-awareness is the first step in the Stoic way. We all have areas where we can improve. Stoicism isn't about perfection, it's about progress. It's about making small, intentional changes that lead to greater peace, control, and wisdom over time. I encourage you to choose one red flag that you want to tackle today. Maybe it's letting go of resentment, or embracing discomfort, or perhaps shifting your focus away from external validation. Whatever it is, start small and take consistent action. Now, I'd love to hear from you. Which of these red flags are you most likely ignoring in your life? Drop a comment below and share your thoughts. And if you found these insights helpful, be sure to subscribe for more Stoic wisdom and actionable strategies to live a better, more resilient life. Remember, the journey to self-improvement is ongoing, and each step, no matter how small, is progress.